If you've been putting out tips, strategies, and how-to content to grow your speaking career, this episode is going to be uncomfortable. Because that content is no longer doing the job it used to do, and my guest today will tell you exactly why. Most speakers are unknowingly competing with AI on AI's home turf. They're sharing information that anyone can now get from a chatbot in 30 seconds, and wondering why the enquiries aren't coming through. David Newman has spent decades helping speakers, consultants, and experts become the obvious choice in their field. His books like Do It Speaking and Market Eminence are two of the most practically dense resources in this industry, and he has more as well. Today, we're getting into what content still works, how to position yourself so that hiring anyone else feels like the wrong call, and what it actually takes to become a category of one. Welcome to Professional Speaking, the show for people who are serious about speaking and becoming known, booked, and paid. My name's John Ball, professional speaking coach, keynote speaker, and stand-up comedian, and sci-fi nerd. I'm here as your guide on the journey to a successful speaking career. Great for me to be able to welcome David Newman to the Professional Speaking studio.
Hey, John, it's great to be here. Thank you.
Your voice has been in my head a lot recently because I've been enjoying listening to your audiobooks, Market Eminence and Do It Speaking, great books, and I'm sure we'll touch on elements of those as we go forward. I like to kick things off by asking my guests whether you have like an opinion or a stance in the industry that maybe is a bit contrarian to what you hear other people saying, not sort of common wisdom, as it were.
So this is where I live, and I have lots and lots of contrarian opinions, but I'll just share one as per request. My first book in the Do It Marketing book, I actually have a micro chapter whose title is Branding is BS. Branding is BS. And I talk about all of the war crimes, the heinous war crimes that branding agencies have done to professional experts, whether it's a consultant or a coach or a speaker or a business book author. And John, I've literally had people come to work with me as a client on the sales call, and I even saved these sales calls because they're so much fun they're crying because they said, I just spent $30,000 on this branding agency. They didn't get me. They didn't understand my book, my speaking. They put this branding thing on me, and it felt like I was wearing a ill-fitting suit of clothing. And I knew from the beginning, they say, I knew from the beginning that this doesn't fit. This is not going to work. I had a bad feeling from square one, but they just kept convincing me and saying, this is how it's done, and so on and so forth. Not to say that there aren't a few good branding consultancies. I'm sure there are. But the fact that speakers and experts, they will reach for branding. They will reach for PR, public relations. They will reach for any sort of easy cheat code or shortcut. And the reason that's so appealing, I think, to some people is because they don't want to face the fact that they actually have to do the hard work.
Right. This is where people get themselves lost in all the preparation that can go on forever and ever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely get that. It would have been interesting to have you on when I spoke to Mark Schaefer recently. I'm sure you two would have a lot to talk about in the world of branding. Come across quite a few of those sort of positions from you in your books. And I say, in terms of content and value, I don't think I've ever come across a book that has so much packed into it, certainly as Do It Speaking, Market Eminence as well. These are not books that you can just listen to on 2 times speed and work your way all the way through. It's like, I tried that and it blew my brain. You have to have your pause button ready and you have to stop and take action on these things because there's so many and they're all gems. They're all stuff like, yes, you have to do this. Now, we probably told most speakers when they do talks and stuff not to do that with their talks, but with a book, it's very different. What was your inspiration to starting that in the first place? And how did you end up pulling that book together with so much value?
Yeah, so thank you. And that's also a very, very wise distinction about jamming way too much into a speech versus jamming way too much into a book. Um, I'll just riff on that for a quick second because I think people probably can't hear it often enough. When you're giving a presentation, when you're in front of a group, the number one thing that will kill your follow-up, that will kill your client attraction, is giving them too much content. I used to make this mistake. Here's why I'm so passionate about this, John. I used to be the Firehose, and my evaluations and my feedback were like, oh my God, it was like drinking from a fire hose. There was 21 strategies in 60 minutes. It was totally amazing. Now, as speaker feedback, you think, hey, I did a great job. I over-delivered. When I was following up with these people, I remember one gentleman in particular taught me this lesson with a very harsh slap of truth. He was very interested. He seemed like a prospect. And I said, well, would you like some help implementing what we talked about today? And he says, oh, David, I'll tell you, as far as coaching, as far as consulting, no. You gave me so much, it's going to take me 6 months to work through my to-do list from your presentation today. And I was like, okay. So now I have embraced the speaking wisdom of do three concepts in great depth that are very helpful and will serve that audience really, really well. Save the other 18, because I literally used to have a 60-minute program called 21 Strategies to X, Y, and Z. 3 things in great depth that will actually help solve 2 or 3 very specific problems. Leave the rest unaddressed. Leave the rest, say, hey, there's a lot more to this, but let me help you solve these 3 things right now. And then people would say, first of all, what are the other 18 things? And it's people are afraid of they don't know what they don't know. If you tell them, well, here's a little bit of a snack in 21 areas, they feel that they can eat for 6 months. If you say, let's go deep on 3 areas, there's a whole lot more to this, but, we'll cross that bridge later on. It's leave them wanting more. It's the old theater saying about leave them wanting more. To address your question about how did I write the books, this, bloviating, as you can tell right now, comes naturally to me. Bloviating on paper in print is amazing. It's called a high-value, dense, flourless chocolate cake kind of book, where you've taken out the boring parts and it's just hit after hit after hit and rant after rant after rant and strategy and template and tool and trick and tip. And so I thrive in that. One of my strengths is actually input. So I love reading. I love, listening. I love watching things. And then as a creator myself, my other strengths finders are things like maximizer, activator, ideation, and empathy. So all of my books, including the Do It Speaking book that you mentioned, including the Market Eminence book, that is the new one, I remember vividly what it was like not to know these things. And I remember vividly what it was like to make all the mistakes, hit all the dead ends, hit all the brick walls. And it's almost like I'm writing the book to an earlier version of myself. That, man, I wish I had known these things earlier. I wish I had done these things earlier. So that's where that fire hose of book content comes from.
Yeah, it's a good trait, and I've certainly got a lot of value from it. In fact, keep going back to it. I'm on my 2nd reading of Do It Speaking right now. So
yeah, thank
it's
you.
Not a one-time read, in my opinion,
yeah.
and it's not every book you come across that's like that. I love what you say there about to introduce them to like a whole framework or concept, and say, all right, here's just a little bit of it, and like leave them hungry for the rest. I think that's such a great strategy, one that I like to use and teach to my clients as well. In terms of, I find it is a lot of the sort of people with teaching, training characters, backgrounds who do have more of the fire hose tendency. But it's not a terrible thing to have so long as you rein it in. And I'll say, even with your book, there's I don't think there's anything that I've come across there that didn't need to be there. It's like, it's lean in terms of there's not extraneous content in there.
Yeah.
And then, I'm going to say this, then I went to your bonus page, and it's going to take me 6 months to work through all those bonuses. That's just blown away by how many bonuses you had there. And again, all relevant, all valuable, I think all mentioned in the book as well, which is pretty incredible.
Yes, thank you. Well, the bonuses changed my philosophy. So the first 3 books, the Do It Marketing, Do It Speaking, Do It Selling, I had a different philosophy with bonuses on those 3 books. With the Market Eminence book, I'm taking the medicine that I just shared with everyone about make it much narrower and much more specific. And also all the Market Eminence bonuses are from me. So rather than have launch partners and people that are providing bonuses, and obviously everyone benefits because then you opt into their email list and you can stay on there, you can unsubscribe after you get the bonus, whatever. I realized that I think in 2026 and beyond, people are no longer impressed by the thud factor. You know, the thud factor where like you used to get this big box that all the internet marketers would send you a $2,000 course and then this big cardboard box full of binders and DVDs and recordings and transcripts. And it was like a 40-pound box. And it was like, boom. And it's like, well, I got my $2,000 worth. And this goes to a concept that I wrote about, I think in the Do It Selling book. It's about Mule versus magician. And there are Mule speakers, and there are Mule audiences, and there are magician speakers, and there are magician audiences or prospects. A mule wants the stuff. It's a pack mule, and it's got the 2 heavy baskets on the side. And the more crap that we can put into those saddlebags on the mule, the more valuable the speaker thinks it is. And they're wrong, by the way. And the more valuable the audience thinks it is. They're also wrong, by the way. The magician, on the other hand, says, let's do the transformation with the minimum, right? The minimum amount of time, the minimum amount of work. Let's get you there as soon as humanly possible. And the magician's job is to shorten the path and to accelerate the speed that you get to the outcome that you already know you want. Less stuff, less reading, fewer videos, shorter PDFs, no binder. Let's just get to the outcome. And so one of the things that I tell my clients today when they say, well, how long should the program be? They're paying me $100,000. I feel I should add this and throw in that and give them all of this stuff. I say, you need to make your program as short as possible and as long as absolutely necessary. That's it. As short as possible, as short as humanly possible, and as long as necessary to give them the outcome. So what does that mean? That means we're giving them the minimum amount to get the optimal result. We're cutting out the nice to haves. We're cutting out the, oh, maybe you'll also run into this. We're cutting out the appendices. We're cutting out the, all of the side dishes that we probably don't need. We're doing the meat. We're doing the potatoes. We're doing the outcome. And we're doing it as fast as we possibly can. Because I think executives and economic buyers, they're no longer impressed with, it's a 9-month program. There's 800 videos. Everyone needs to read my 896-page book. If you think about your fiduciary responsibility, which is to shorten the path and accelerate the speed that they get there, every assignment, every reading, every video that you don't need lengthens the time that they need to get to the outcome. It does not shorten the time. So for folks listening, if you want to increase the value of your program, don't ask, what can I add? Ask, what should I take out? What can I remove? Just like in a race car, a race car, you can have 2 ways to win the race. One is to put in a bigger engine. 2 is to make the car lighter. The best thing you can do is get a bigger engine and make the car lighter so that it's less mass going down the track. Make your car lighter. And don't worry about putting more junk in the trunk.
Yeah. For some reason, it's reminding me of the time I was asked to give a 2-minute speech. Decided in this micro speech to take on the meaning of life. So pretty rapid transformation in a short space of time. I'm not sure I achieved it, but my experience anyway, I think a lot of speakers do that with their keynote content as well. What you're saying about not really getting focused enough on the transformation. And so one of the things you say in the book is about giving massive value, but I think that is now giving this transformation.
For sure, for sure. There was a compliment that I got from a speech, and at first I thought it was pretty insulting, but it turned out to be a huge compliment in retrospect. So here's what the person said. It was a 45-minute breakout session. A person comes up to me at the end and says, I got more value in the first 7 minutes from what you shared than the entire, all of yesterday's sessions at this conference. And I was like, 7 minutes? I was just getting warmed up in 7 minutes. Where were you for the other 38 minutes? This was an awesome 45 minutes. And you're saying, hey, I got my value in the first 7 minutes. But of course, in retrospect, it's like, oh, that is enormous compliment. That's an enormous compliment. And how can we front load the value, right? If you're giving a 45-minute keynote, I would challenge you, if they only heard the first 7 minutes, would it totally blow their minds? Would it totally, oh my gosh, this is what I came here for? Airport moment, meaning that if I left right now for the airport, this event would have been worthwhile. So how much airport value can you put into the first 7 minutes or the first 10 minutes or the first 12 minutes of your talk, where yes, you're going to be awesome for the remaining 30 minutes, but if they just heard that first 7 or 10 minutes, they could get on their airplane, go back home, and still this event would have been a massive turning point in their business or in their life. Well, of course, with airport value and airplane value, I'm talking to the right guy.
Yeah, a little bit of history with the airlines, but
that's right.
Absolutely. Curious, Market Eminence, your more recent book, am I right in thinking it's more written for like agencies and consultants, but has value to others as well?
Anyone who's in the business of expertise, yes. So you could be a CEO, a founder, an independent expert, a speaker, all of those folks.
Yeah. Definitely there were bits I found very relevant as a speaker and as a coach as well. And there were some other bits I thought, well, maybe more for an agency than for me, but it's still good to know. What are the elements in there that you would encourage for speakers and coaches to help them achieve market eminence?
Sure. So the whole premise of the book, the question that I set out to answer is, what does it take to get noticed in our crazy, busy, befuddled, distracted, AI-driven world? What does it take to get you noticed, your company, your product, your service, your charity, your cause, whatever it may be? And the 3 macro level answers are, number 1, visibility, because no one buys expertise sight unseen. No one buys speakers sight unseen. So number 1, we have to get seen. Number 2 is there's a level of respect that comes from audience members and meeting planners and conference producers and corporate executives that feel you have X-ray vision into their soul. So this is about knowing your audience so well that when your session description, your keynote description, what's on your website, what's on your latest LinkedIn post, your latest blog, your latest video, they encounter that content and they say, oh my gosh, this person wrote that for me. This person is talking directly to me. We were just talking about this problem. We were just having a meeting about this. We just had a board level discussion about how this problem is such a big pain in our butts. And you want to convey this sense that you've installed video cameras in their meeting rooms, you've installed listening devices on their phones, and you know exactly what they're up against on a very anecdotal, plain kitchen table English basis. Because when they feel seen, when they can recognize themselves in your marketing, in the problems that you're solving, in the way that you're talking about the conditions that most of your clients and audiences find themselves in, there's a level of respect that they say, this guy gets it, right? This guy gets it. This guy knows what our problem is. He knows what we're up against, and he can probably fix it. So the second level is that component of respect. The third level is brand preference. So brand preference is a combination of positioning and differentiation so that you're communicating that it is risky, dangerous, and dumb to hire anyone else. So let's say you're a leadership speaker. There's a million leadership speakers, and there are a handful that are, visible, credible, have a body of work. There's a smaller handful that have that level of respect and resonance, meaning I can see into your soul. I know what's going on. I know what you're up against. And then there are the ones that have a very specific point of view. There's ones that have a very certain belief system or philosophy or lens onto the world that some people are not going to like, some people are not going to resonate with. But the people that do resonate with them resonate very, very deeply. So that level of brand preference is when, number one, they've seen you. Number two, you've communicated that you know what they're going through. And your particular philosophy or approach or methodology or perspective is polarizing, opinionated. It cannot be replicated by AI. Because it's based on your personal experiences, expertise, what you've seen, what you've done, what you feel is right with the world, what you feel is wrong with the world, things that you're for, things that you're against, your personal biases, opinions, recommendations, etc. And those people are truly a category of one. Now, when I say category of one, does that mean that, there's only one leadership speaker in the world that's going to be booked by everybody? No, of course not. Because remember what I just said about divisive, opinionated recommendations, different lens, different perspective. Some people will resonate with that and hire that person immediately because it's risky, dangerous, and dumb to hire anyone else. Other people will run 180 degrees away and say, oh my gosh, we would never want to bring that person in. That person's a heretic. That person's a nut. We're not doing that. We're not going there. That's insane. And they will resonate with another expert who has a different flavor of market eminence, and maybe they're even polar opposites, right? So if you think about all of the different disciplines that a speaker might have, sales, marketing, customer service, corporate culture, whatever. One person talks about corporate culture and says, it absolutely starts at the top. It starts with the CEO. It starts with the C-suite. It starts with the senior executives, because the rank and file people are not going to follow or do anything that they don't see the top people living those values first. Okay, that's not really divisive or opinionated. You'd have to add some more things to that. But someone else says, oh my gosh, starting at the top, that's insane. That's not how it works. It starts at the bottom. It starts at the bottom. We got to get each individual contributor excited about building a culture, having a environment of trust, having a collaborative and innovative mindset. So I would never dream of starting at the top. It always starts at the ground floor. And then it starts to propagate upwards. Now, is one of them right? Is one of them wrong? I don't know. But there's going to be audiences, there's going to be economic buyers that resonate deeply with speaker number one and would never hire speaker number two. There's other audiences and other economic buyers that resonate just as deeply with speaker number two, and they would never hire speaker number one. Here's the person who's left in the middle. Well, corporate culture is really important, and leadership is a key component of culture, and culture is a key component of leadership. And here's 5 leadership tips to build your culture. And here's 5 culture tips to enhance your leadership. And it's just the same old lame-o commoditized nonsense that people have been saying for the last 50 years. Nothing new, nothing original, nothing risky, nothing bold, nothing brave. And that person falls into the sea of sameness. That person is easily ignored. Even when they're hired for bare minimum fees. because they're easily interchangeable with anybody else, right? Someone hires John Ball, and then, the meeting is on March 17th. And unfortunately, John got horribly, horribly sick. They're not going to say, well, hey, let's just bring in Susie Cream Cheese. They're going to say, John, we're going to reschedule the meeting. Can you make it on April 4th? Because you need to be so important and so unique and so valuable that they're not going to hire another speaker to fill your slot. They're going to move their meeting so you can still be their speaker.
Yeah. And that's incredibly valuable. I think you've already answered my question as to whether there is really space in the market for the generic speaker who does equivocate somewhere in the middle. Not really. And yeah, I do encounter in my coaching with other speakers many people who are genuinely afraid of taking those sort of contrarian positions, and maybe it's the fear of not being liked by some people or trying to be liked by everyone, people pleasing and all that sort of stuff. But I think probably can at least appreciate that we need to do it. So I guess my question would be, what are some of the ways? Firstly, how easy is it for somebody to differentiate? And what are some of the ways that people can help to pull out some of these maybe more opinionated views that might help them to stand out?
Sure. So the answer is it is easier. So here's my saying about this. It's easier than it looks, but it's harder than you're making it. Making it too hard. You're making it too hard. I think the biggest obstacle, the reason that some people think this is really, really hard, is coming up with a contrarian viewpoint. That's simple. You and I can do that in 10 seconds, right? Leadership is important. Leadership is completely unimportant. That would be a contrarian viewpoint. Two things wrong with that. Before you go and plaster that on your website, people, number one, you have no idea what that means because you haven't really processed it. You haven't come up with a point of view or a belief system or a methodology that supports that in some way, shape, or form. And obviously, these contrarian viewpoints, they are extreme, but they're extreme to make a point. They're extreme to get people to think differently about the problem that they have. So that's problem number one, is that you haven't done the intellectual work of supporting that contrarian view. The second thing is what you point out. It's scary. It's scary. It's like, well, who am I going to turn off? Who am I going to push away? Who will never hire me? And the way I would attack both of those challenges is, let's reverse engineer this. Let's, number one, figure out who you would never want to be hired by. And let's just go piss them off. Because they're not going to buy anyway. These are all the nightmare clients from hell. These are the audiences that don't listen, don't want what you have, don't need it, don't want it, don't get it. So I'll give you an example. I was working with a speaker, this was a couple years ago, and she was all about building a corporate culture of entrepreneurship, right? Entrepreneurial thinking. When you work in a big organization, right? Not a new concept, so it's intrapreneurship. It's being an internal entrepreneur. And I said, shop this around with a couple of clients and a couple of people, that friendly folks that might be in a position to hire you. So she has one meeting with one particular gentleman, and she comes back. She goes, oh, David, this was a terrible idea. This guy hated my idea. He said to pick something else, I have to go in a different direction. I'm rethinking my entire business. This is not something that corporate America wants to buy. And I said, Bon, you had one conversation? She says, yes. I said, what did he say? He said, corporate entrepreneurs, innovative spirit, bold, decisive, right? He says to me, that is not what I want my employees to do. That is not what I want my team to do. You know what I want my team to do? I want my team to sit down, shut up, and do what I tell them to do. And I said to her, okay, so let me repeat that back to you. This guy said he wants his team to sit down, shut up, and do what he tells them to do. Do you think he'd be a good client for you? She says, what? I said, do you think he'd be a good client? Would he be receptive to this whole corporate entrepreneurship? No. Oh my God, he'd be a nightmare client. He'd against everything I believe in, everything I stand for, everything I've written my book about. He would be the anti-client. And I was like, exactly. Did he get upset? Yeah, he got very upset. Did he say that no, he said the last thing he wants. I said, great. So now you know that you've turned off your enemy. You've turned off the enemy. So now your mission is find 3 more executives who love this idea, who embrace this idea, who would warmly welcome you in to come in and speak and train and coach and consult and help them build this organization of corporate entrepreneurs. And I said, you talk to the enemy. And I love that you have an enemy. And I love that you kind of pissed him off because he's not your buyer. So it's like, okay, let's reverse engineer, right? So one of my presentations, I have a slide that has this like really angry old man face. And the headline of the slide is, who are you disturbing? Who are you disturbing with your content? Who are you disturbing with your keynote topic, right? Who are you pissing off? Who are you getting really mad and upset? Because that person, number one, they would never buy from you. And I would say your homework and your assignment from listening to this podcast right now with me and John is go post something, go share something, go write something that would piss that person off even more. Because the more that you push away the clients and the audiences that you don't want, the more strongly you're going to attract all of the great fits that are waiting for you to show up to help them.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I would probably even add to that. One of the things I had fed back to me by a prospect had read one of my articles and got in touch wanting to work with me was that he was offended and upset by the article that I wrote, but he knew it was right. So
that's even better. That's even better.
So sometimes it's okay to be like that because you actually are provoking an emotional response.
That's right.
Rather than just being the sort of bland, milquetoast kind of responses that probably, well, you see them all over the LinkedIn feed, right? Like most of it is pretty much drivel.
Yeah.
I'm curious to get your take on something here. What, in your opinion, is maybe the number one, or maybe at least one of the top reasons why speakers don't get booked?
Because they are sharing how-to content. How-to content is done. As of November 2022, when ChatGPT became publicly available, how-to content, the world is now filled with billions of terabytes of how-to content that is better, smarter, more accurate, even though AI is still not very accurate, more useful, more valuable than what any human could ever put together. It can program an iPhone app. It can build your corporate human resources handbook. AI can do everything in the how-to category. We're humans and we're human speakers have an advantage that needs to be exploited in a very, very significant way. So please start doing more of this immediately. Forget about the how-to content. That's done. That era is over. Humans, speakers, us, we need to focus on how to think. How to think is a higher level, strategic kind of content that is based on insight and experience and expertise and war stories and battle scars and things you've seen and things you've done and things you've learned. You personally. AI can't crank that out, at least not yet. So number one is move away from how to and move towards how to think. Number two is content that shifts beliefs. So this is where you're separating the wheat from the chaff. This is where you're sharing what to believe, what not to believe, separating the myths from the truths or the myths from the half-truths or the outdated truths. And again, this is also based on your personal experience, the world according to you. You don't need to research this. You don't need footnotes. You don't need a bibliography, right? Because again, now we're in AI territory. We're not in what makes John Ball uniquely John Ball, what makes David Newman uniquely David Newman. So second category is separating the wheat from the chaff, the signal from the noise, belief shifting. content. The third thing that speakers need to get better at, I think the first two, some of the more advanced speakers are pretty good at. The third one, I think, is uncharted territory for many of us. It is how to get ready for what's coming next, or where to focus to get ready for what's coming next. So we need to be a little bit more of a trend spotter. We need to be a little bit more of a future caster of figuring out, where is this industry going? What's it going to look like 3 months or 6 months or 12 months down the road? How can we be the early warning system for our clients and audiences, where we're telling them how to see around corners, how to get ready, how not to get ambushed, sideswiped, or surprised, and or how to take advantage of emerging opportunities and new trends and things that they should be aware of. Because I will tell you, what every high-level executive really hates is they hate being surprised. They hate being ambushed. If they could have seen something 3 or 6 months ago, if they could have seen something coming, good or bad, and their team or their advisors failed to show them or point this out, they get very, very upset. So they also value very, very much, here's something to look out for. Here's something that's working its way towards being obsolete. Here's a new opportunity that you need to be one of the first ones to grab a hold of. So what can you do in your content? What can you do in your speech to do a little trend spotting or future casting? And again, you don't need research. You don't need Chat GPT. This is the world according to you, based on your work, based on what you're seeing, based on you being an active catalyst in the industry and the environment that you're in. By the way, even if half of what you predict is wrong, and it probably will be, we're recording this right now in February of 2026. I can make 10 predictions right now. Incredibly amazing. So powerful. This David Newman, man, he's got a handle on what's coming next. Who in August of 2026 is going to go back and re-listen to this episode with a pen and paper and say, Newman was wrong about number 3. He was totally wrong about number 7. Number 8 hasn't happened yet. No one's going to go back and check your homework. So please be a future caster, be a trend spotter, help people get ready for what's coming next. If you focus your entire speaking business and your entire messaging and content and visibility and keynote and seminars and everything on those 3 areas, number 1, how to think, not how to. Number 2, what to believe and what not to believe. Number 3, how to get ready for what's coming next. Watch what happens to your business in the next 90 days. You will be totally amazed.
I think that's really valuable. And that's definitely a different way of thinking. Certainly many speakers really who are looking to these sort of elements, particularly the sort of future. And you're absolutely right what you said, because if people did go back and check on people's predictions, we would never listen to economists.
Totally. It's literally wrong at least 50% of the time.
Yeah, it's fair enough. I think it's very valuable. So I'm taking from what you're saying there that the speaking industry isn't going anywhere soon, but you may have heard similar voices that I have sometimes sort of predicting doom for the speaking industry, that it's all going to go under. What would be your take on that?
I think humans for the last 50,000 years have really valued face-to-face, belly-to-belly, around the campfire, breathing the same oxygen as each other. So will the type of speaking change? Will we all at some point be holographic images walking around, or robots with permanent bodies and our AI organic brains somehow downloaded into these AI robots? Maybe. But I think for the foreseeable future, speakers and experts who genuinely add value, change the conversation, shift the frame around some of the problems that our clients and audiences are having, those speakers will have completely unfair advantage in the marketplace. So I don't think speakers or speaking is going to be obsolete anytime soon. I do think speakers that are playing it safe speakers who are in the middle of the road, speakers who are sharing information and not so much insight. Those speakers are at peril. Those speakers are at peril. But again, so are those companies, so are those business book authors, is moving away from commoditized, easily AI replaced information. And what AI cannot replace, and again, I say that with a caveat, not now, not today, is your personal expertise, experience, battle scars, war stories. I'll give you a little quick example of this with my second book, which is Do It Speaking book, which was a traditional publisher. It was HarperCollins. I submit this like 50,000 word manuscript. And my editor comes back to me and says, David, we're going to need some footnotes and references. And I said, footnotes and references for what? She goes, well, you quote, there's the Apple commercial about 1984. Steve Jobs said, right, all of these kinds of things. I'm just using Apple examples for a minute. But she pointed out like 3 or 4 areas of the book. And I said, well, number one, that's common knowledge. That doesn't really need a footnote. And she said, well, how about some of your other data points? I love that she calls them data points. I said, there's no data points in my book. This entire book, this 50,000 words of the world according to Newman. This is the world according to, I have no references. I'm not quoting other people other than the 1984 commercial from Apple about 1984 with the sledgehammer being thrown against the screen. And what I said to her, I said, show me one area of the book. Show me one specific passage that you feel needs a footnote. And she showed me literally one. And then I rewrote that passage so it no longer needed a footnote. But it's like everyone wants the research book, right? It's like, well, what are the notes? What are the references? What do you back that up with? Up here. I back this up with my brain, my expertise, my experience, my past jobs, my past lives, every expert I've talked to, every client I've worked with, every podcast guest that has shared their brilliance with me. What I'm saying is there's so much pressure to, well, write the research report, write the book report, have a long list of references and bibliography and citations. You don't need to do that anymore, my friends. It's 2026. AI can handle that. What the world is hungry for is the kind of books that I write, which is the world according to me, right? And you need to write about and speak about and keynote about the world according to you. Now, again, this is not to say that it's self-centered. It's audience-centric. It is meant to offer value, help people with thorny, difficult, challenging problems, but do that based on your own expertise, experience, and what you've done and what you've seen and what you've learned. No footnotes required.
Yeah. That's great. Oh, that's one thing. I think my listener, especially listeners who do know your work, might be upset with me if I didn't ask you at least one question about marketing. We have touched on those things as well, and the positioning advice you give, the ways to think about your speaking, I think that's actually great marketing stuff as well. But for those speakers who don't really know where to be focusing with their marketing, with their promotion, are there particular channels or areas that if someone comes to you and said, no, they're throwing all the spaghetti at the wall, they're doing all of that, but they're not getting anywhere with it. What do you see, maybe currently or in general, as being the most valuable way that a speaker particularly could use their time to help promote themselves and their work?
So I'm going to answer with the way my friend Corey Perlman, who's a social media expert, answers. He says, everything I see online about you, including social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, I need to see you in action doing what you're selling. So if I go to your Instagram right now, will I see pictures of you speaking on stage? Your YouTube, will I see virtual presentations, webinars, videos of you sharing your brilliance on video? Or will I see you, sharing funny memes about, hey, who's on their 17th cup of coffee? Will I see, hey, I'm coaching this client? And again, speakers can do coaching, consulting, training, etc. But remember, buyers are lazy, busy, and befuddled. So the context in which they see you in a split second is the context in which they set you. And I've made this mistake. So the majority of my business is not speaking right now. It is coaching and consulting and training and so forth. I used to have a lot of speaking stuff. And so people think, oh, he just speaks. There's no way we can hire him, which of course is ridiculous because I make 80% or 90% of my revenue today with coaching and consulting and seminars and private events for companies. So in a boardroom with like 12 people, I'm not on a big stage doing this. So is your social media and is your website organized in such a way that the thing that you want to do the most of is also the most prominent? Is that what I'm going to see you writing about on LinkedIn? Is that what I'm going to see on your website? So even I have a client right now who does a lot of MC and hosting work, but he wants to do more keynoting. So you go to his homepage, and yes, the homepage, his hero image is him on a stage. But then I go to the services page. First, and this is how subtle it is, first menu item that drops down under services, event host. Second thing, MC. Third thing, keynotes. I said, didn't you tell me that you want to do more keynoting? Right. So why is keynoting a third-class citizen on your services menu? It's like, oh, but it's on my home. But no, every signal is a signal, right? You're either moving towards or you're moving away from. I want to see keynotes first. And maybe if you're really brave, take off the MC menu item. Take off the event host menu item, right? Let that be on your secret menu where if you're prospecting, maybe there's a secret unlinked page on your website. Draw people to that when you're after that kind of work. But when I go to your website, I want to see speaker, 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 speaker. If you want to be a speaker, 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 speaker. And then the worst offense on this, John, is when I go to someone's website and they say, oh, I'm really doubling down on speaking. I really want to be a speaker. I really want to get more speaking revenue. I want to build up my speaking profit center this year. And I look at their, menu item on their menu bar, rather, on their website, home, about, services, books, contact. There's no speaking menu. There is no top level menu for the main thing they want to be doing. So again, these things are simple, but the devil is in fact in the details. And so because buyers are lazy, busy, and befuddled, they're not going to hunt around for your speaking, right? So they're not going to hunt around to find your video. You need to put everything front and center so that it is easily found, easily referenced, easily shared. And the primary service that you want to offer should be showcased on all of your platforms.
Yeah. And that's great advice. And I think far too few people do it. And we was the new LinkedIn algorithm absolutely requires this sort of alignment between what you're posting and what your profile says, and to not have too many things in there that are going to confuse the algorithm. So I think see LinkedIn doing it, we're probably seeing it everywhere else, is great advice generally as well. Sadly, we don't have time to go into every aspect of your knowledge because you just got so much of it. I feel like I
could just read all 4 books.
Yeah.
And, this would be like a 14-hour episode. It would be amazing.
I would love that. but sadly, that's not what we've set things up for today. I do think that even for this is one of those episodes that I will be referring back to again because you packed it with value. There were stuff in there today that wasn't even in your books that really sunk in for me today. So I found it very, very valuable. I know my listener will have as well. You've given us some tasks to do, but for our listener, who I recommend check out your books because your books are amazing. I read Market Eminence, Do It Speaking. I will get round to your other books as well. What's the best way for our listener to find out more about you and what you do?
Sure. So 2 easy places to go. Everything we talked about today as far as Market Eminence, you can simply go to marketeminence.com and you will get all the companion resources, tools, downloads, training. You can also buy the book there, but you don't have to buy the book if you don't want to. You can. No problem. Do it if you buy the book. But get the free resources in either case, marketeminence.com. And then all the rest of my empire is the main website, which is simply doitmarketing.com. So there's a blog there, podcasts, some other downloads, there's some free training, there's Do It Marketing Manifesto is there. But as far as the content from today, I really recommend start with marketeminence.com, grab all of those resources, and that will serve you really, really well.
Absolutely. David, it's been such a pleasure speaking to you today, and I'm going to have to go and absorb everything we've talked about, and we'll be looking forward to sharing this episode with my audience. But thank you once again for coming on to Professional Speaking Show.
Thank you, John. This was tremendous fun. I appreciate you.
I really loved this chat with David, and if it blew your brain, well, welcome to the club. And that gives you some idea what it's like to read David's book. But you know what they say, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. The books may be dense with information, and it can feel a bit like a fire hose coming at you, but you can take them at your own pace. In fact, his books are incredibly well designed in such a way that it's very easy to do that. Learn something and implement it. Learn something and implement it. It's a very practical way of doing it, and even though it'll take you a while to learn everything and implement it all, it will absolutely be worth it. I am currently listening to the audiobook of David's Do It Marketing, and I will be moving on to Do It Sales as well. The books are incredibly good value. He gives you a ton of bonuses as well, on top of all that amazing information. Oh boy, you've got to check it out. No doubt we will have David back on the show sometime soon, but this was a spectacular episode, one of my absolute favorites. Now, if positioning is something that you're working on, and if you're wondering why the bookings aren't coming through or why people don't seem to be connecting with what you're offering the way you hope they would, these could be signals that your positioning is not quite right and isn't hitting the market the way you would hope it would. In which case, you may want to come along to a workshop that I'll be running at the end of this month. It will be May the 27th. It's going to be 1:30 Central European time, 12:30 UK time, kind of early morning if you're in the US, kind of late in the day if you are on the other side of the world. But if you can't make it live to the event, do join anyway. It's going to be very low cost, and I will make the replay available to anyone who wants it. We're going to be diving deep into your positioning, how to make it work best, connecting with the market in the right way, and helping you be on track to be one of the must-book speakers rather than just a nice-to-have speaker. If that sounds good to you, do check out the link in the show notes and come and join us. Now, if you like the show, and I hope you do, I hope you'll come back and join us, maybe even check out some of our past episodes with amazing guests. But there is one thing you can do that would really help. Now, if you're not already following the show, or even if you are, please make sure you're following us on Spotify. Spotify is one of the main platforms that actively recommends shows if it's receiving the right signals. So giving us a 5-star review and a follow on Spotify, as well as listening to some episodes there, will mean that this show will go out to far more people. Right now, the show is really big on Apple Podcasts, likely to be just as big, if not bigger, on Spotify as well. So if you can do that, that would be amazing. You'll have my eternal, undying love for doing so. Do join us for the positioning event. Wherever you're going, whatever you're doing, have an amazing rest of your week. Go and do something worth speaking about. See you next time.